Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Supervision Matters podcast with Rita Sever, a leadership coach, HR consultant, and author of Supervision Matters and Leading for Justice. Welcome, everyone. This is so exciting. This is the very first episode of our new Big Blend Radio podcast with Rita Sever. Rita has been on our show for a number of years, and she is an amazing author. She is an organizational coach, and she go to her website, supervisionmatters.com, which is also the name of the podcast. She is the author of the book Supervision Matters as well, 100 bite-sized ideas to transform you and your team, and also the book Leading for Justice, Supervision, HR, and Culture. So today, we're at the end of the year, which is a great time to start a podcast. Get ready for 2025. And so, Rita, that's really what we're looking at, is that end of year in regards to, looking back on the year with the staff and then the HR, right? This is really the management and the HR work together with the staff to kind of reflect on everything and then look at going forward, right?
Right. Yes. Thanks. First of all, thank you for setting this up. I'm excited to be with you and
I think it's going to be great
way to be together. And I really
Yeah.
want to focus on supervision because I think it's such an important role, and it is often overlooked with all the to-do list. And it is critical. An organization can't be successful without strong supervision practices. And so today, talking about turning the page, stepping back with your team, whether your team is one person or 20, or, if it's huge team, then you might have to break it down into bite-sized amount of people so that you can have a process. But together, stepping back and just doing a quick assessment. How did we do? How are we doing? Are we on the same page? So taking time to be really thoughtful and proactive about that, and using the end of the year as a time to do that so you can start fresh in the new year.
I love that. I think you're just having that conversation. And I think it's something to, like you're saying, going into the new year, everybody's wrapped it up, but then kind of refresh on it, right?
Right.
In the new year.
Exactly.
You want to touch back on it after the holidays and everybody's, gone on vacation and everything, right?
Yeah, fresh start. Yeah. So I thought the first thing I'd talk about would be a process to do one-on-one with your staff that you supervise.
Okay.
And this is a process that is really about having a conversation, like you just said, and a way to check in. Are we aligned? Are we looking at the same thing? Are we prioritizing the same thing? So the process is really simple. But the mindset you bring to it is just as important as the actual process. So the process is basically one-on-one. You meet with a staff member and you talk about what are your top 3 to 5 priorities for your job. And you both write that, you as the supervisor and you as the staff member.
Oh, okay.
And then the conversation that follows is really what matters. Of course, it's great if you have exactly the same priorities, then you've done a good job of communicating and you can move on from there. But even if you don't have the same priorities or they're in a different order, then using that as an opportunity to dig in and unpack. What do you see? What's changed or what hasn't changed? Maybe you're out of alignment, or maybe you just see things differently. So
which could be a good thing, right?
Right. Yeah. It could be a real asset. And using the time to really be curious with each other. Why do you think that matters more than this? And if we don't do this, then this isn't going to happen. And I've talked to people who have done this process and they've said it's been really fruitful and eye-opening. And even like somebody said, we both had customer services on our list, but in different orders. And as we talked, I realized I had sort of inadvertently written my own priorities instead of their priorities. So it was great breakthrough for both of them to realize they were on the same page.
Well, it's interesting too. And I love that you talk about the mindset and to do it with curiosity
Right.
because I think all the time when you have these one-on-ones, it's there's like a negative thing that happens immediately to someone's brain, is like they're
It
gonna,
can.
it's kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, are you on the hot seat? You know,
Right.
there's that, and then everybody in the company starts going, uh-oh, what's going on? There's
Yeah.
these one-on-ones. So if it became kind of like a tradition, at the end of the year, that everybody knows these are kind of the things. I mean, is it good for the staff to know that you're going to ask these questions,
Sure. Absolutely.
beforehand? Say, hey, this is
Yeah.
what we're doing. Maybe have like a group meeting and say, this is what we're doing. So
Yeah.
kind of think about it beforehand, even gives it so it's not too much of a surprise. And then it may like set the tone of it being
Exactly.
positive.
And, make it different. I hope people are meeting one-on-one with their staff throughout the year, but maybe
Yes.
this one you bring snacks and you make it, and
Cookies.
you sit in different chairs or something to say this
Mm,
is different and this is about a conversation and alignment. It isn't an evaluation. This isn't a test.
oh,
And
that's the
as
word,
you said, be
evaluation. Yeah.
really clear. This isn't a test. I may be seeing it differently, and you may be absolutely right, and we wanna
Mm.
get on the same page again.
Oh, I love that. I think this can work in personal relationships too.
Right, exactly, it could. I think
Yeah.
that would be a really interesting conversation for spouses to have. What do you see
Yeah.
as our goals for next year or our priorities?
Yeah. That's a,
Absolutely.
I think it's a good process. I remember once, Nancy and I were starting a different publication, and it's morphed and changed over the years because our industry is always changing. So the tools you just gave us good tools, because we're always in change, and the world is changing. Look at, the nonprofits are having to deal with different things, funding issues, so there's so much, and maybe they didn't win things that they thought they were going to win, or so there's things that a nonprofit will go through, over the
Right,
years,
absolutely,
depending
and
on what they are.
yes. And I have, as you know, I have a background with nonprofits, and part of what happens as they grow, often jobs morph.
Mm.
And, somebody may hang on to something that they did when the organization was 5 people and now it's 20 or 50. And suddenly you realize you have somebody who's your financial person and your IT person. And so when you do this exercise,
Ooh.
it comes out that you can't make financial accounts your top priority and keeping IT. Those are not going to both be top
Yeah,
priority. And
that's, so
so
it's
then
like a
it's a
chain.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a real sign that, okay, something we have to shift something here.
Yeah, we when Nancy and I were doing this magazine thing, we were at our friend's bed and breakfast, and she knows us really well. She's like my grandma. She's awesome. And she knows Nancy and I, and we're like sitting outside with a glass of wine and talking about the structure of the magazine and departments and all of that editorial. And then we start like, no, but this, no, but that. She took us, and she knows us. I mean, because we become like sisters at this point, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's business. It's not mother daughter. This has got none of it. She goes, girls, each of you go to your room, go to your room, take a piece of paper, and each of you write down the 5 things that
Uh-huh.
you do it, you write it down, instead of just you're going back and forth without any writing down. You write
Right.
it down, and then each of you, what is important to you, what you see. We came together, and then it was like, oh, well, I can compromise on this, well, you can compromise, and that's kind of, she made us do that, and it's very
Yeah,
similar to what
very
you're saying.
similar process, yeah, and then you can move forward from there.
And you're looking for alignment at that point, not like who's going to
Exactly.
win. It takes
Exactly.
that kind of, but I think it's great, because like we're saying, like nonprofits and businesses are changing. Technology is changing the way people work. AI, look at that, is
Right.
coming in. It's like,
Right.
people think, oh, am I going to be obsolete? And maybe, yeah, that's
Right.
actually a truth.
I
So
do wanna say that,
mhm.
if you're a supervisor, there may be a point if somebody's list is way off in left field where you have to go, "Okay, I'm appreciate you being clear about your priorities. And I need to bring it back to your job description, because somewhere along the line, we got off on different tracks, and
Mm,
this is what you need to be focusing on. So I
okay.
don't want to imply that everything's a negotiation, when sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it can be, but sometimes the supervisor has to step in and say, no, that's not what
Mm-hmm.
I need you to be doing.
Mm. And I think it's a good conversation. It's a way of, making sure as the employee that you're on track,
Right.
so that you don't keep going down and then one day you don't have a job, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Or you may be realizing that, hey, that's actually what I really want to do. So
Mm,
maybe I should go work somewhere else or see if there's a different position. Because sometimes that
exactly.
happens. I have a friend, she went all the way to the top and she had some personal things and losses in her life that were very dramatic. We all go through those. And
Right,
she realized that she was just overdoing herself to a point of not being happy, not having, and she's like, I don't really need to do this. I could
right,
stay where I was, where I was really enjoying it. I wasn't, this stress over here is just like, I can't do that anymore to myself because she needed to heal after some
right.
major loss of family. And she was just like, and the money on this actually comes in later to be about the same. So
Wow.
she went and said, she took some time off, personal time or whatever, for to get the, because she was in conferences and having to do speaking and at the same time dealing with grief is a very
Right,
hard thing. So she went and talked to them and said, I need time out. They're like very understanding. She went and she did a lot of thinking, a lot of walking, and she was like, I don't think you ever really heal. I'm like, no, it just you deal with it a little bit different. But
right,
she realized through all of this that she was making it impossible for herself to even be human and it didn't make sense. And she went to them and said, look, I know I really told you I wanted this position. And she goes,
mhm,
but I really think I need to go back down to where I was.
right,
So it's a lower level job, but it's
mhm,
it's still very important what she does.
right,
Very high end. It's still a ton of work, but she's like, she suddenly just was like, oh, I
right.
don't have to do this rat race. And they were like, we loved you in that role. Nobody else
Uh-huh,
can kick butt like you can. I mean, because she's
right,
very good at sales and that
uh-huh.
and development. And she's happy, they're happy, and there you go. It
A
just was,
win-win,
she
right.
pushed herself and she can do it, but you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
sometimes I think also age changes you too.
absolutely. And I had a personality too. I had a moment in my career when, you're sort of on track to keep moving up. That's sort of what we think we're supposed to do. And at some point, I realized, I do my best work behind the scenes. I'm
Mm,
not the big leader in front of the organization or on TV or whatever. I am a behind the scenes person.
mm,
That was a really important realization, like for your friend. This is where I will be happier and better.
mm-hmm. And then looking, you say also that when you go through this process, you're kind of looking at the alignment, what are the priorities, but then you also have to reflect on the wins and maybe the losses or some of the bumpy. So once you get to your
Right,
priorities, yeah, you kind of have to have those discussions of what was good, what needs
right.
help.
Exactly. I think it's another good end of the year process. This one I think could be a whole team meeting, depending on the size of your team and how comfortable
Mm,
people are. If it's a very competitive team, it won't work. But if
mm,
you're a collegial team working collaboratively, then taking time in a team meeting at some time this month or at another crucial point along the way. And yes, look at what worked, what did we do well? And maybe if you have time, give each person a chance to toot their own horn. This is what I was great at this year. And as a team, this is what I think we were good at. And then the other side, what could we have done better?
mm,
And again, make it as safe as possible for people to look back and reflect honestly on these questions. And then the
mm.
third component is, what are our priorities next year? So
Okay.
again, we're all on the same page. We're all working for
Mm.
the same goal.
So it's really good for the one-on-ones to be done first and then
Yeah.
do the group. How long would you say each process would be? I mean, I think if you've got a big group, that's going to be a little longer, but the one-on-one maybe what, how long? Half an hour?
Maybe half an hour to an hour, depending on,
Mm-hmm.
how in-depth you want to get with the conversation, but no more than an hour. Yeah,
Okay.
I think most of them would probably come in at 30 to 40 minutes,
Okay. And then
unless
what
there
about for
was
the group? Oh,
severe misalignment that you had to correct.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think this is really good because it's a way of just touching base, saying, and especially if the organization has had to make some big changes,
right.
because that does, I mean, like I was saying, I mean, you can't say we aren't changing all the time in the world,
Exactly.
and you have to. I mean, it's you have to, or if one person is changing as needed and the other side isn't, that's also a problem. If someone
Absolutely.
is having a difficult time with a change that has been made, even change of leadership could do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Mm,
main thing again is you want to get realigned and start off the new year same
positive.
page and moving forward.
Oh, I love this. I love this, and regrouping on it. So with the group, that would definitely be around an hour, right?
Yeah. Yeah, again, depending how many people, but probably keep it to an hour. Even if you have 20 people, maybe you do 10 the first meeting
Okay.
and 2 the next time.
Okay. And then in the new year, everyone come together and just kind of have one more group meeting and say, remember this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How are we going to keep these goals that we made in front of us? That would be a good team meeting to start the year off.
Okay, that's good. Like go into action plan. That's
Yeah,
nice. Nice. And when people do retreats and things like that, isn't this something that can be utilized in a retreat?
absolutely. Yeah, you
Mm,
could do this as a string of activities for
mm.
sure. And in
Yeah.
that case, I'd probably even before the one-on-ones put a reflection time for each person if you're doing
Mm,
a retreat. Take a half an hour and think about what did you do well? What could you
mm.
improve? What are your top priorities? And then move into the other meet.
I was thinking this would be really good for a board of directors.
Oh, it would be, yeah.
For nonprofits, like I know, a friend of mine runs a chamber of commerce, and then she's on the board of the Western Association of Chambers of Commerce, or
Uh-huh.
anyway, if anything to do with the Chamber of Commerce, she knows it. She is it. And she's always making sure she has not just her meetings with her board, because she has to like tell them what's happened in the chamber, and she has to,
Sure.
yeah, the evaluation part is real. And
Mhm.
like when you go to the city and say what's going on in the funding, and because all of that is real, but she's always having some kind of like quarterly check-in with the board of directors. And I think this is kind of what she does, is this, what does the chamber do well that year? So, a nonprofit board of directors, because they're supposed to be there as an advisor, right? Too, you
Right,
know,
right.
so not even they're not
That's
necessarily
great.
working in the
Mhm.
organization in those kinds of situations,
Right.
but they're there as a guiding light, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, leading
Mm,
the organization.
okay, very cool. And then I do want to ask you about dealing with all of this personally as an employee, as a leader. Are there ways to keep ourselves, you know, to go through this ourselves? Any tips on that? Because like, I was saying what you were talking about, this mindset being so important, right?
Right,
And then when you get into a room, it's like, okay, no matter what, if it's positive and the leader's doing that, the leader needs to be in a mindset. So everybody has to be in that mindset. Can you help yourself to not, what if you don't like something that's going on in the company, to have
right.
emotional balance? Let's put it, that's the term.
Yeah, it is tricky, and that's certainly an ongoing process. I am a big proponent of self-reflection. And so certainly at the end of the year is a great time to set aside time on your schedule to think about the past year, but also quarterly, monthly, whatever. And I think the key components are, again, what did I do well? What am I proud of? What could I have done better? And the
Mm,
second part of that is there anything I need to clean up? Like maybe
mm,
realize, oh, I really blew it and yelled at somebody in front of the whole team. and go back and apologize and fix that. It's okay.
Mm.
Um, and then the third thing
That's a good point.
is there anything that, looking back over a time period like the year, anything that I need to let go of, like belief systems? Like, I know people who tend to see things in black and white, and when I
Mm.
teach them, sometimes the goal is look for the gray,
Yeah,
because you move into right and wrong, good or bad, you need to consider the gray. So
that's why we're the blend.
right,
Because life
exactly.
happens in the gray area. That's
Exactly. And people
yeah.
live in the gray area most of the time.
Hmm.
And so that could become a practice for the new year. And practices means you're not
Hmm.
100% at it, you're working on it.
Hmm.
But that can be a thread through the new year.
Mm.
Um, and then anything that you want to aim for as a specific goal personally. I want to make sure I have my one-on-ones with my team members next year. How am I going to do that? Or as you were
Mm.
just naming, I want to show up as a positive leader. And to do that, I'm going to take the 5 minutes before every meeting to get my mindset ready to lead.
Mm.
Something pretty simple but profound. Each
Mm.
of those steps would be a profound change for
Mm.
your leadership.
You can look at that like every day before you even go to work.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Kind of just to keep yourself going as a habit.
absolutely. To build the muscles for that practice.
Hmm.
Yeah. And as
Yeah.
you said earlier in this podcast, take a minute to write it down, because otherwise you'll forget
Hmm.
each of these steps. What worked, what
And
didn't work, what do I want to focus on?
I even like that as a daily practice.
If you
I
can.
remember having a Benjamin Franklin planner,
Uh-huh.
and I remember thinking this is the best thing ever
Right, right.
because they taught you to take time out every evening. You make an appointment with yourself, literally, and you go through very similar exercises that you're saying.
Yes.
And it made me think instead of just going, oh, that was a crummy day, this didn't work, that didn't work. I'm going to go have a glass of wine. Well, now you've ruined your wine with that attitude. Don't ruin the wine.
Right.
Be good to
Yeah,
the grapes. So if you can write it down, it kind of calms the emotional side again. And
it's
we need
true.
emotion, we need fire and all of that good stuff, but it's how we balance it. So
Right.
I always love that. And I have to say, number one, my handwriting is terrible, but it's even that action is good, but you've really kind of given me a little bit of a prod.
It's great. Yeah.
It's
I feel
betterment.
inspired too. I'm thinking,
I
okay,
know. I'm
how
kind
am
of
I
going,
going to
I'm
do
going to
this?
go and do this. Yeah.
Right.
I think it just gives you some clarity
Right.
and it makes things serious. And I think it's good for not just people in organizations, but like you know, if you're working remotely, I think these are really important, even
Absolutely.
because those conversations are just so many little chats, you know.
Mhm.
This
Right.
takes it beyond that. Even in a Zoom meeting, you can do this.
Right, absolutely. And like you
Yeah.
said, that, taking time, whether daily, monthly, whatever, at least yearly, but hopefully more often, when you take time to do an exercise like this, you can turn the page and you can
Mm.
let go of last year's mistakes or problems and start fresh and bring intention to what you're doing.
The letting go is a big deal. It's a big deal, and people don't really realize that. And I mean, I know about it from us going on the road, having to get rid of everything,
Right,
and it was a process. It was a grief almost.
absolutely.
But
I
I've
get
really
that.
learned how important it is because there's only so much we can put in our car. So that whole thing, your glass is full, but you can't keep pouring more water into your glass. It's
Right,
not going to function.
right,
And so there's only so much we can do, so many hours in a day. So letting go, sometimes even just with contracts, sometimes
mm,
you have to look and go, do we really need this extra thing? Do we need this extra office space? Can we
right.
let go of that and put that financing into a remote worker
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Right,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
wow, Rita, this was awesome. What a great start. I'm
Okay,
excited.
great. All
I
right.
know. This is going to be super fun. Everyone, we are here every third Friday. And so you can keep up with us at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And everything is on bigblendradio.com. Also go to supervisionmatters.com and get your newsletter. That's important. Everyone
Yes,
gets that because
wonderful.
you send out articles and definitely follow Rita on LinkedIn. I love
Great.
following you on LinkedIn. You're always busy. You,
Yes, lots going on, as are you.
yeah, I
All
love it though.
right.
But you always have something to kind of get you to think about something,
Yeah.
which is great. So, thank you
All
so
right.
much and happy holidays. We'll chat in the new
Thank
year.
you. All right. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Supervision Matters podcast with Rita Sever. Keep up with Rita at supervisionmatters.com and listen to new episodes every third Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on bigblendradio.com.